Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets. Interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. Well, it's award season in Hollywood, if anybody hasn't noticed, and I have been lucky enough to interview a couple of production designers, and I'm trying to get all of these episodes up before the event, and honestly, before the voting stops, so that if you're a voter, you can listen to these interviews and help you decide who to vote for. In this episode of Decorating Pages, I'm speaking with production designer Patrick Tatopoulos, who has such a long, amazing career of blockbuster, huge films that first of all, I prepare for these interviews and I try to specify on things I think that the audience will want to hear, what you want to hear about. But secretly, I really just want to hear about films I want to hear about. There are so many questions that I had for Patrick, and I don't know if I got to maybe a quarter of them, to be honest, because he has such a vast career in working in different positions in the art department. He's been a creature designer. He works in visual effects as a creature concept designer. As you'll learn, he has his own creature house and how he got started in that. He's a production designer who's worked on films as the nominated Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. He did Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League, 300, Rise of an Empire, the new Total Recall, Live Free, Die Hard, I, Robot. He did He started designing on Independence Day, which is a phenomenal thing to me, and you'll hear all about that. He talks a lot about Independence Day, which I was a fan of and am a fan of. He did creature design for Beauty and the Beast. I mean, he's directed, he's been in the makeup department, he's been an art director, writer, producer, he's acted, he has lent his talents to the costume and wardrobe department. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal, the career that he's had, and I'm just so glad that he's agreed to speak with me. He's been nominated for art director, as I said, this year for Maleficent. He's been nominated for a British Film Designers Guild Award this year also. Online Film and Television winner for production design of Dark City. And for the Academy of Science and Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, he was nominated for Stargate, and he won for Godzilla in '99. So, people notice his work, and he just sounds like such a genuinely nice guy. Even when I reached out to him at first, he was so kind and got right back to me, and I've really enjoyed just the tiny minutes I've had to speak to him. He seems like a cool dude. So I'm so glad that he was able to do this and give us these moments, because he's got some great stories, and I'll tell you what, I probably could have done another hour with him. So I hope you enjoy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Look at us. Look at us going. Okay, let's do this.
Okay, let's do this before I somehow screw this up again. I actually am so overwhelmed with questions because you have so many gigantic projects. And before I dive into how do you even start something like Maleficent or a Justice League, like how did you get your start?
My start, it goes back a while ago. I remember I was, I'm French and Greek. Half French, half Greek. My father is Greek, and I spent some time in my life before I came to the States in Greece. And I remember one night watching a movie called The Thing, John Carpenter movie, which is this creature movie, which I thought was amazing. it blew my mind, and I decided I want to do this. I got to go to Hollywood. Build a portfolio here in Greece, sculpt creatures. My first approach to the movie, the movie world, was to do creature effects. And that was my first direction. I didn't know about production design. I didn't know. I'd studied architecture at the Art Décoratif of Paris, but I'd never really practiced architecture after that. So I was more interested in the creature world. So I started that way. Basically, sculpted about 5 or 6 creatures, put a portfolio together. At the time, it was not digital. It was just photos and things like that.
Right.
Put a portfolio together and just called people in the industry, like in the makeup industry, like Rick Baker, Stan Winston, some of the very big names. And I got some appointments, and so I flew to LA. And when I got to LA, my portfolio was left in Amsterdam on transit, and I didn't have anything to show. And I was here in LA for just a week. I wasn't very rich back then, and that was a big adventure for me to do already. And so I got stuck here for a week with nothing to show. Those people say, hey, we can't really meet you because you have nothing to show. We'd love to meet you, but we need to see what you can do. I say, I understand. The night before I was ready to go back to Greece because, just this thing was not happening, I ended up getting the portfolio, and I called everybody. Unfortunately, most people were not available anymore, except for this small company called Makeup Effects Lab in North Hollywood. And they said, yeah, come back tomorrow. Bring your portfolio. I brought my stuff. They looked at it. They said, this is great. You still have to practice sculpting a little more, but we like your work. It's cool. We don't have any work now, but call us back. We'll call you back once we get something going. I said, well, I'm going back to Greece. Yeah, call me back. So anyway, here I am going back to Greece with no hope that the Hollywood adventure would happen for me, because I was like, well, maybe I should be a fisherman in Greece and hang out.
Isn't it such a seesaw of well, I'm either gonna do this or I'm gonna be a fisherman. There's no in between.
That's it. There's no in between. Because Greece was lovely, fisherman sounded really good, and it was kind of funny. Anyway, a month later, I got a phone call back from those guys at Makeup Effect Labs, and they say, hey, we have a job. We thought you were cool. You're a nice person. We like your work. We think you have some great ideas. Why don't you come back? We'll get you your green card. Why don't you come back with the companies? Which was to me completely amazing. They called me back all the way to Greece when they had people working in America doing some great work. They didn't need me, but I thought something sort of clicked. And today, I think those people are the people that gave me that biggest chance I've ever had, because they got me my start. They got me my green card. I worked with them for about 5 years. It took me that long to get the green card.
Wow.
And quickly, I realized that they had some cool project, but not the kind of project I wanted to do. And slowly I started to kind of spread out a bit and starting to discover other aspects of things. And I worked mostly on props at that time and creatures. I would sculpt, I would design, I would start doing sketches. And some of my first movies were Hoffa, Bram Stoker, Dracula. Very heavy amount of work on that.
Yeah, some small independent films you worked on in the beginning.
Well, I did work on really terrible little movies as well. I worked on Chud too. I don't even.
Yes, no, I know what Chud is too, and that it's still it's a little bit, but still it's kind of like a folklore towards a movie where you don't want to admit that you've seen it, but everybody's seen it.
Yeah, that kind of thing, exactly. Yes. Well, what I really want to say is okay, I got projected on those projects not because of my talent, because I was associated with that company, to tell you the truth. That company was not the biggest company in Hollywood either, but they did a lot of Star Trek thing for TV, they did a lot of props, and anyway, what they gave me is a chance to understand how the process works. And the process of creature effect, makeup effect, is not that all different from our department and set building. You still work with the team. Everybody gets some sort of assignment. We work together. The collaboration, knowing who to put there, who should be doing this. All that stuff sort of got me slowly into that. And I got my first art direction job out of the blue on a movie called, again, number 2, Beastmaster 2. Not the Beastmaster, but Beastmaster 2 was my first art direction. They called me art director for just to be nice, I assume, because I had no knowledge about art direction per se. And so I went on to this project and realized that I had a great time working on designing sets and building them and working with a small team of construction. We shot that in Yuma. So in a sense, that was my first my first little hint into the world of sets and set design and set building and set, all that world. And that was a very, very small film, but he got me into he got me onto the ground, and I would have to go to the desert and have to go check out the sculptors. I was learning. I didn't know much, really.
Yeah.
And people around me, I got to say, were very, very supportive. And so that was my first experience. Then this actually happened before the Dracula. I'm sort of mixing up everything. The Dracula was the most important thing for me because that's really what put me on the track for my next big movies. Dracula, I started in a small company that was just across from the company I was working across the street, and Chris Gilman from Global Effect told me, I'm working with the prop master on Dracula's movie for Francis Ford Coppola, and we need props. So I need some designs from you. So I designed the inkwell, I designed the cane of Dracula, I designed a bunch of books, I did a lot of things. I mean, like drawers of sketches I did for this thing. And when this happened, they liked them, and the guy who hired me ended up building those props. But then the costume designer at the time was Eiko Ishioka. Eiko Ishioka is one of the most amazing costume designers I've ever met. She passed away,
I mean, those costumes in that film are so memorable. Yeah. I mean,
absolutely stunning. And she passed away, unfortunately, a few years back. And she was absolutely amazing. What an incredible artist. And I think she actually, in some way, drove the whole look of the film. Not just the costume. When one of the departments sort of like gets that very strong signature style that the director's like, whoa, can you keep an eye also on the set? And this is not to diminish Tom Sanders, who's like an amazing production designer, did the production design of the film. But she was extremely influential all across the border. Anyway, Eiko called me because she had a problem with the helmet for the armor of Dracula. She had designed the armor, this crazy red armor he wears at the beginning of the film.
On Gary Oldman.
On Gary Oldman. Yeah. And she had done a bunch of, I personally felt, absolutely gorgeous designs for the helmet. Francis, who was a big fan of her, still couldn't find the helmet that he liked, and she had trouble with that. She saw the drawing of my props and asked me, why don't you just play with the helmet? So I did a design for a helmet, and then she showed it to Francis. Francis said, great, I like that. So we ended up collaborating in some way, but at a very small level. My job was basically the helmet of Dracula, which appears in the film quite as a hero piece, and I was so, super excited about this. Then, as this happened, Tom Sanders and his art director called me to start working in the art department and do some sketches for the castle design, sketches for the carriage, sketches for the chapel, all those very important sets. I ended up working next to another great and famous illustrator called Mentor Hubner, passed away again, an older gentleman, but absolutely amazing illustrator. So I work in a very small team, like just him and I, and we sketched out tons of stuff, which the art department is building. So the movie's done, it's all over, we move on. And then what happened is I wasn't credited in this movie because I wasn't legal yet. So all the work that I had done was unfortunately not kind of rewarded in that way, so nobody knew I'd worked on it, except for all the pack of drawing and sketches that I'd done. But someone heard of me, and that was Rod Emmerich. Rod Emmerich heard about this French guy who did some designs on the Dracula Bram Stoker and reached out to me via his art department and said, I'd like to meet Patrick, bring him in. So I came, and I basically met the production designer, Olga Gross, who designed the movie, and Olga met me for about 2 or 3 hours. We chatted, it was really fun, and then I left and I never heard back from him. I was like, well, okay, I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that movie. And that was it. And then, I don't know, like seriously, about 3 months later, got a phone call from Emmerich assistant. He says, did you ever come by? I said, yeah, I came by. I had a 3-hour meeting, but I thought you guys, I was there. He said, well, Ron wants to see you. So I came back. And I guess, Ron had a slightly different vision from Olga or something. Something was a bit different. And, Ron decided that I should be working on the movie. So I started the film. And I started the film as a concept artist. Because I was doing a lot of illustration at the time. That was one of my key jobs, basically.
Yeah, I see that you have a lot of illustration credits also. I mean, you're in every vein of this art department. It's amazing.
Well, no, you won't find me as a set designer. That's not going to happen.
No.
No, I'd love to. I'm just really not that good
That's
at
true.
that.
That's true. I don't see that on there, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but so basically, so I started in the art department. This sounded like an amazing project. It was Stargate. Stargate was like, whoa.
Yeah, Stargate was huge. Huge.
Yeah, and huge. I mean, there's bigger than that. But the thing is, it was such an exciting project, such a visual feast. When I got to read the script and I started there was, in a sense, really my first real art department job. I had got the green card at the time, so I was good. Everything worked out, so I could actually be officially, part of the art department, not just under the radar somewhere,
Yeah.
So it was really, really good for me to sit down in a big room where I would be, starting to understand that they are set designers. I sort of knew that, but not to that level. Work with a broad team of artists, technicians and everything. I could see all that. And it was fabulous. I met other concept artists which were pretty stunning.
Yeah.
And just learned a lot that way. And my first job was to start doing sketches of some of the sets, some of the world. And then Roland Emmerich said, I've seen the design for creatures. Why don't you work on the warriors? Like the Horus, the Anubis, all those like armored warriors, and the Pharaoh. So he gave me that task, and I said, wow, great, I'd love to do this. Then he took off for about a week in Germany, or so 2 weeks in Germany, which during those 2 weeks, I ended up painting those 3 characters. I did one shot at it, just one. And he came back, and he loved them, which was unbelievable. And he said, this is great, that's what they should look like. I love them. He says, we are going to have to find someone to build those costumes and those creatures. And this is where, I guess, was my second big turn in my career, when I said to him, well, I'll build them for you. He was like, what, you don't have a shop, do you? He says, no, I don't have a shop, but let me build them for you. And I don't know why I was so ballsy at the time, very naive about what it meant to build, on such a big movie, being able to not only design the creature, but build them.
Yeah.
But I just, there's always been a bit of that in me, not because I'm so sure that I'm so good that I'm going to make it great. No, but I have a bit of a naive, I'm jumping.
Oh, I think
that's
huge, and I think that's very important in this business, to be naive enough.
Yeah, I think, yes, I agree with you.
Yes.
I think it's essential. It's too often extremely talented people end up being worried, and they don't, I think that, naivety about, and just say, I'll do it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing really served me well, actually.
Yes.
Really
No,
helped me position.
I think it's very important in this business, and that, like you were saying, it's not like I'm trying to be a perfectionist, and if I hand this over to someone, they're going to screw it up. It's more of like, no, I can do this. Like, let me just dive in. Let me just do it. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's driven by passion. It's driven by excitement. What I had is that I had a lot of passion, but also even more than passion, excitement. I always had that. I was like, oh, I'm jumping at it. Oh, this is great. Boom. So I did a bottom line is he turned around and he said, hey, why don't you do it then? So we got a space. We got, the fact that I'd worked in creature effect prior to that, I called all my ex-buddies from the creature world, and they were all, we're going to work with you. It's going to be fun. I showed them the design. They loved them, and we started. And this was my first, this is where I created my company for the first time, and put my company together and build those creatures. That put me on the because people were saying, so who is this guy that's coming out of nowhere that's doing all the creatures for Stargate? Nobody knows him. He's unknown. Well, some people knew me, but so it was a bit of an interesting thing. I just came out of nowhere, thanks to Roland Emmerich, who just also was not worried, and or was maybe worried, but he didn't make it sound like he was. He was like, you do it. And I just, there's something about the man. I mean, I said this company was the first company, Makeup Effect, gave me my very first shot. Yeah. My next big, insane shot and things that really put me on the map for good for a very long time was Roland Emmerich. And I can't thank those people enough because, I was doing some nice design, some nice ideas, but they gave me more than that. They trusted me to go beyond just making nice illustration or making nice designs. And that was huge. So anyway, that was when I ended up finding myself going into the creature world again, but this time with my company. And that became a bit of a path where I sort of just concentrated on creature and some of the costume and the props. But the very interesting thing, and it's all linked together in some ways, is at the end of the film, or maybe a few months after, one of them calls me and he said, "Hey, come to the office today." I came to visit him and he said, "We're making a movie. Our next movie is called Independence Day." He said, "When you did Stargate, when I did Stargate, Roland felt like my prop design, I designed some of the swords, some of the things, some of the javels of the characters, and they had a very special textures of like real lines that go across almost like meteorites or scratching the surface, that kind of idea. And that texture and that color and the whole texture and color range, World liked so much that he asked the designer to bring it into the world of the set. So it was weird because he didn't come from the set; he came more from that kind of thing. For example, a funny little example: I designed a belt for the pharaoh, like a belt buckle, and it was like a huge scarab with wings, like you find in Egypt. It was very curved and very organic, and the scarab, it was supposed to be on his belly there, just beautiful, large-scale belt. And I remember sitting in a meeting and. The art department was showing a bunch of spacecraft for the warriors to use to fight around, and they were very much like spacecraft and cool looking, absolutely nice. And then I came into the picture, and then I showed Roland and said, "Well, he said, "Well, what do you bring, Patrick?" I said, "Here's the belt." And he looked at the belt and he said, "Well, that should be the craft." So, I mean, he's that kind of guy too. He's that kind of guy. He's just such a great vision. It blows my mind. You look at that, he just grabs it the wrong way. I mean, the wrong way, not the way it's meant to be grabbed, and he flies it across the table. And he said, "That's the spacecraft," and we're done.
Yeah.
So I think those little things, in some ways, made him feel like Patrick could be working in sets as well. It's very organic. Stuff is very organic, but it's so when Independence Day sort of came up, he already had worked with a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, Oliver Shaw, which had done some movies with Roland as a concept artist. He basically put both of us as production designers on the Independence Day movie. Very cleverly, I feel, because Emmerich knew that I was very organic and that better suited for the world of the aliens, when Oliver's got multiple talent, but was really good at tech, the high-tech world of maybe Area 51, and we ended up being like two big goofball of concept artists projected in the world of production design. That is extremely exceptional and unheard of at the time. So, because neither Oliver or I were really production designer. We were just people who had ideas and came up with stuff. And so we had an amazing art director that came on board that basically was really seriously the backbone of all the art department, and it was Jim Teagarden. Jim Teagarden, another absolutely phenomenal human being, because it was clear that he was the backbone. He was the reason why this whole thing functioned. Oliver and I were very much extended concept artist. Oliver worked onto the tech world, human, and I worked into the alien world. We had, the three of us, had the most amazing time.
Because even on Independence Day, you had a hand in developing the look of the creatures also, correct?
Oh, not only that. I already had my company, like I told you, so the creature, I designed the creature. Yeah. And this is why I actually ended up designing the spacecraft, the mothership, and all the interior of the spacecraft, all the world, the attacker, and all those things was the thing that I ended up doing.
Yeah.
But the alien sort of came very early. Same thing, Roland says you should work with the alien. And so I was basically designing the movie with Oliver, but I was also designing the creature, and my company built the creature, which was, it was wonderful. The other thing that I want to say that was really great with Oliver is, although I was clearly the guy that was working on the set, on the alien world, and he was clearly working more on the Area 51 and the tech stuff, we both looked at each other's work, and we both came up with ideas, there was clearly a line, a separation, and it was not dictated by the director, but naturally, when I was doing alien craft or alien creatures, I was more in the line of what Roland wanted, and Oliver was clearly doing great stuff for all this high-tech world. So we naturally sort of drifted each one into his own world, but we were communicating so well. This is how we became really great friends. Because we both got projected at the same time in the same place.
Well, it's a good thing, because on a project like that, if you're not going to get along with the person that you're doing dual designing with, that would have been awful.
Obviously.
That would have been awful.
But it's easy to see, and I know this has happened before, where there's conflict. because it's a job of responsibility. You're kind of driving, and then you have to kind of. So it's not always easy for people to be co-designer, like co-director.
No, it's not.
All that. And Oliver and I, this was not a choice that either one of us made. We could have been clashing. We could have both had slightly different personality, and it could have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
But it was not, because I think one thing was clear for Oliver and I. We were both feeling extremely lucky first to be in that crazy position. We both felt we could be learning so much, and it just happened to have a.
We just happened to work on the biggest grossing film of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, what can I ask? What was the budget? Do you remember?
I don't know. The budget of the film, the whole movie?
Well, I mean, I only know it made $50 million the first weekend out, and that was that broke records, and then it was the second grossest highest film for a long time.
I don't remember if it was maybe it was in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
I think back then, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, what an experience, I was just, we were the thing about Independence Day was absolutely phenomenal and I hadn't seen that before, is I could open the back door of our department and being on the stage where we were building the studio, where the construction shop was right there, and then the miniature shop was right there. Everything was right there. The only thing that was away was my creature stuff, was somewhere else in the valley.
That's really nice.
The fact
that's not usual these days.
No, it's not. When you go to work in a studio, you have to walk to the stage. But this idea of being so connected together, so close, and I think the miniature being in the same shot, the same giant space, we had to use airport, DX used airport, and we had the two big giant hangar there to build the sets. But being in a place like that where you could walk for 20 seconds and be in the middle of the construction, or 20 seconds being in the middle of your model making and everything. Experience of a lifetime. To me, that's really set me up for the rest of what I've done after that, because I learned so much there, thanks to Jim T. Garden, thanks to Emmerich, but also thanks to Oliver, and vice versa. We came out of this movie, we had really matured a lot. We still love to design and do things, but we also learned the process so much more. And the creature was an interesting thing, because, and it's always a little thing I tell people, is I first designed the creature before I worked onto the craft, because I believe, obviously, the creature, the being, creates the craft. If I don't know what the being looks like, I can't create a craft. This is also my little mantra to say that, in some ways, you being able to design the creatures and the set sometimes is not completely weird. If a creative mind, many people have in Hollywood today, is being able to do a creature first to understand what the being is, and then going directly onto the spacecraft they're coming with, for example.
Right. So it's creature and then environment when you're designing.
And then environment. For me, it is that, because the creature, first of all, what is the morphology of the creature? What does it look like? Is it an alien with one leg? Whatever. This has to define the cockpit of the craft, obviously. So I tackled on the alien first, and the first job for the alien for me was, I did one alien design that was very much in the line of the Greys, which is the public, the popular imagery of aliens. The Greys have been seen for on sketches for 200 years or more, and I thought I should do one that feels like that. So I did a design like that with a slightly different head, much bigger head, translucent thing, but I did that thing, and then I did another one that was much more, I would say, almost like amphibian, tall, more elegant, pointy head, completely different, not really respecting what people had seen and called alien before, something new. And I showed the two designs to Roland, and Roland looked at the two designs and he said, you know what, I like both of them. I say, okay, so what do we do? He said, I have an idea. Why don't we put the small one, and we started to talk maybe on some sort of box behind and we talked for about 10 minutes, and at the end he says, no, the small one is the alien. And on his planet, this alien is very fragile, cannot travel on its own, or walk easily on its own, because his legs are really weird, and so to travel to come to Earth, they live inside another alien being, which is not the brain. The brain is the one that's inside. So the little gray-looking alien became this
So your design, I mean, that's something that I have discovered so much in talking with production designers is how much of designs, or say like this part of designing an alien, the story comes out of the design. Like it starts to lend to the story. It starts to lend to, like, I thought that was part of the alien. Like they said, hey, we're going to have an alien inside of an alien. Can you design that? But it didn't. It came, yours came first.
You know, you're right. Often it does happen like that. Sometimes you kind of driven in a corner with something and you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
But again, there was a weirdly very open-minded, friendly atmosphere in this art department. We felt like we didn't know we were doing that big a movie to start with. Mm-hmm. So it felt like a movie where all like together, a bunch of students putting something together. It may sound strange, but it wasn't far from that. Also, working with a director that really knows what he wants. Mm-hmm. Another thing I gotta say about him is not every director out there is able to make a decision unless they see 20, 30, 40 concepts. I've never done for Emmerich more than 2 sketches for concept design. Again, not because I'm like genius, just because Roland explains so well where his head is at, and then he also lets you breathe. He lets you go, and what comes back, he embraces. And because there's enough of what he was asking for.
That's really respectable of the process, because you can't have every answer right then and there. Like let us go think. Let us go come back with like, okay, now this is this option. This is what we can do. This is an explanation of why it's this way. I mean, that's really smart and respectful of the design process.
He's very Ron. The funny thing about him is he always wanted to be a producer. I mean, he always was. I'm sure it changed now, how successful the director is. But his dream was to be a designer when he went, I think, in film school. Even that's what he wanted to do. He's a guy with a great vision that goes beyond just directing actors and things. He's a man of vision and large-scale vision. He's always been that. So he explains well what he's interested in, and also. Like again, so the idea of this alien inside another alien was not in the draft. It was just us sitting down around the table, and he just Ron and I, and he just said, "Well, you know what? Let's put it inside." He traveled, and this whole thing sort of like, I'm sure we interchange ideas together. I just don't want to make sound that I was just sitting there not talking. But he drove that. He drove this thing because as a director, he could have said, let's take that one. Let's develop that one for another 5 months, and then we'll figure out what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It was not like that. Those 2 aliens were, as far as he was concerned, were designed. I just had to figure out a way to integrate the small one to the big one.
And is your, I'm sorry to interrupt, but on IMDb, they have sketches of the alien. These are your sketches? Do you know?
They're very simple word sketches. They're mine, yes.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. I mean, I'm so glad that they're on here so I can see the process of it, and that's awesome.
You know, it's funny. Back then, Independence Day was markers, pencils, and there was no Photoshop. There was none of that. Obviously, we're not doing any of that today. When you look at the concept artwork, it's done in 3D. It's lit. It's unbelievably realistic. Well, the stuff I do today is nothing to do with what I did back then. What I still do today is whatever design film I'm doing, I always start with sketch on paper, and I just not do that. First of all, when this is all over, and if one day there's a big crazy thing and all the computers, everything, the data,
I know.
You have nothing palpable.
You have nothing.
I mean,
we won't even have movies in a sense because everything's digital now. I mean, everything's on digital. I look at all the work that we do that you can't touch it anymore.
And there is no value for pieces that an artist does, except for the fact that, for example, for an artist in the past would build things, they would keep things somewhere, given to the studio, by the studio to them, so it would be part of their legacy or something. They would own some of the work. It was some way for an artist to build up some sort of like, library of their work and something they could pass on to their family or whatever they wanted to do. This thing has gone. The amazingly beautiful work you see on those concept art, if they're not on paper, they're just digital. They have the only thing you can get is a print. So I've really made this my thing, and today, till I'm done doing design, I will always do the sketch. Like the Batmobile, my first design was a sketch, and that sketch is now very special. It was drawn on a Starbucks napkin. Quickly, I went to Starbucks to do the design. Yeah, when Zack Snyder told me, we need a new Batmobile. I went right away. I got a coffee, sat down, got a napkin, and sketched out the Batmobile. And he saw that. That's the first thing he saw. We said, yes, that's it. We do it. It was crazy. And so that little sketch I have still, and it's not special because of me. It's special because it's the Batmobile.
Yeah. It is. It's pretty special to a lot of people, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I mean,
the fandom is
when
unbelievable.
About the sketch on Stargate, they were quite simple. I mean, they were just sketch, pencil, bit of marker, the thing, and there was no elaborate concept art done for like weeks after weeks. It was really, again, credit to Warhol. He knew what he wanted, and he saw a sketch, and he got it. And then we could develop directly into the sculpting at my creature shop. We would start sculpting the creature, did some paint sample. Rather than doing all that as a concept, we knew the form. We knew, to me, form is the most important thing. The form, the proportions were there. We knew what the alien looked like. We would not develop it as a concept art. We would develop it right away as a sculpted piece.
Mm-hmm. So when you're designing like Batman versus Superman or Justice League, and you're designing like the Metropolis, are you inspired by the comic books? Are you looking into like city planning? Because you're part of that whole look of like the city that they're flying through, and not only the immediate architecture that they're in, but this gigantic city or world you're creating.
You do. Okay, but to tell the truth, the director will drive you where we're going with the aesthetic of the movie. Roland Emmerich is a big Frank Miller fan. Mm-hmm. Frank Miller for 300. Frank Miller did 300. Yeah. Zack Snyder directed the movie, but yeah. And his version of Batman versus Superman, Superman was already created in Man of Steel, but when he did Batman, he had looked toward Frank Miller for the design. I wouldn't say the design, but the sense. Frank Miller had made a bolder, strong, badass, big dude, a little older Batman, and that's what Zack wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So once you get that kind of Batman, not so much because, Frank Miller has a very clean and gorgeous style, but it's not the detail of the style. You don't really know what the city completely looks like if you have a general vibe for it. So there was two things, like you do in any art department, there's a decision of where we're going to shoot this, and Detroit felt like the right place for us. And for me, it was like, it has to be Detroit. There's something about Detroit that's absolutely perfect for the movie. Mm. So once we knew it was Detroit, my whole design of the city was based on the concept of Detroit. It will not be Detroit, it'll be Gotham. But that whole, so the aesthetic, the buildings, the era, all those things, the way the city sort of functions, like you do on many movies, we know this sequence is a chase sequence and we'll shoot it there. We know that. Then we know that the whole ending sequence is mostly CGI with set built on stage. This is going to be located here. On every one of those movies, Justice League, Batman, Superman, there was entire maps, which I don't think is exceptional. I'm sure a lot of the art department do that, but entire map of the entire, almost like a Google map.
That's awesome.
That shows you where everything is. And then, to be frank, we start building portions that are necessary in the computer CGI because we don't need the entire city. Those wide shots are just, we know. Nobody builds every street of a set of a world like that, of that scale. So then we know, based on the movie, what we need to develop specifically, a connection between one set to one location to another one in the story. But it was all gravitating around more like the impression we had. And that was my first time in Detroit when I scouted it. Mm-hmm. I really love the city. I love what it feels. I love the fact that it's gutted. Buildings are whole thing. It's got it, but what's left is those incredibly amazing piece of architecture, mixed up in style and aesthetic. But when I went scouting before I started to design, I went back home. I came back to LA with my team, a concept artist. I showed them pictures, and we looked at it, and there was really an aesthetic that developed itself. We didn't want Batman world to be, or the Gotham be, obviously completely reinvented, almost like a Tim Burton thing, which I would love to do, by the way. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we want it more realistic. So the realisms, it means if we're using substantial amount of location for the street chase and stuff like that. We knew this had to drive a little bit of aesthetic. So my thing for me was the rooftop are going to be different. We're going to use the ground part of the city as Detroit, and we're going to obviously extend and create more building. But then once you go to the top of the building, there's some signature things that are different that you don't. One thing I wanted to do that ended up costing too much money. I wanted to have fire escapes on every building, but not just on one side, like packed with fire escapes. So kind of crazy, almost like a scaffolding of fire escapes everywhere. And, those are the cool ideas you have at the beginning. We put it in concept art. We loved it. And then, it goes, the movie goes on, and there's some of those things under
you're looking up at your wall like 5 months into it, and you're like, oh, yeah, remember when I really was in love with that sofa? Where did that...
Oh, yeah, no.
I forgot about that.
You're right. We end up, we do go sometimes much further from that. We end up... for multiple reasons. Obviously budget being the main one, and where do we spend the money? Where does it make sense to spend money? Is that make sense? Yeah. Does that change up? But there are little things more for the designer and the team that you wish you could have pushed all the way. And,
I guess you gotta let go though sometimes, because then there's a bigger fire to put out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you started on Batman versus Superman, did you know that Justice League was coming up? You would again be put... You didn't know. Okay. Because I'm wondering, when you were city planning, were you looking ahead to where, like, the Aquaman, like, we'll get to that. Like, I didn't know if you had any advance.
No, there was no... Okay, Batman Superman was a movie about Batman and Superman. So we knew we had little glimpses here and there of, the Flash, Wonder Woman ends up being quite prominent in there. But the actual real world of those characters, and sort of really came when we did Justice League. We had no idea. At least I didn't. I mean, maybe Zack already had a plan and he was saying, but he should mention it to us. So we really worked in the concept of bringing Gotham and Metropolis together. That was our main goal. What's beyond that? Think about it. Those two places are places where those heroes are. We met them in our map quite close to each other with a big, large body of water in between. So they're not,
I see.
like on the other side of the planet.
Right.
They're
close.
And then you have Wonder Woman who comes from an island somewhere,
Yeah.
And then you have the Flash lives in another city, like in Mid-America almost, that kind of thing, which is not. And then Cyborg is also in Metropolis and Gotham. And so all those characters, when they came and they're not in their city per se. If they are, they have an apartment, Cyborg had an apartment in Gotham with his dad, and we saw that. But so it could be integrated to our world. But some other characters came from another world, so they just come here as tourists. They come here
They're visiting.
They're visiting. So we didn't have to worry about what. Seriously, again, we never really talked about making this movie. Yeah.
I didn't know if it was connected. I mean, obviously you don't need that. You're in a different world anyway. But I didn't know if you had that just inkling of like, oh yeah, and then eventually, well, this building's over here because, that's where Wonder Woman lives or something.
Yes. No, and you're absolutely right. I see what you're saying. That would be important in a situation where it's obvious. This is a place we're going back. But the Batcave, for example. Batcave, I built the Batcave, and this was like gigantic set based on 2 stages in Detroit. It was huge. We built the Batcave, and we don't see too much in a movie, unfortunately. Because the story doesn't lead you there, so there's no complaining. But just there was a lot of things you could not see in a movie because there was no time to visit the entire thing. We ended up building something crazy. But,
I think though Batman's closet is always like something like whenever the superhero goes into their closet or they're in their lair, that's what people want to see. It's like that's.
They do. Yeah. I agree with you. Listen, this is one where you're also from the world of our department, and so we feel that way. Yeah. I think the fans out there obviously want to see their hero more than anything, but they won't. In the case of Batman, the world he lives in, his gadgets, his thing, this is part of Batman. So we really developed that world intensively. And again, this is another situation where way this will fall out from the glass house, from the manor, the glass house, and the cave underneath the glass house, all this will so fall out to a level that you don't even scratch the surface in a movie. And that's okay. I mean, I'm just saying this is okay because we cannot go loosely when we design those things, because if the situation comes that suddenly something needs to happen, we have to make sense of everything. That makes sense of everything is not always necessary for the audience to be sharing.
Right.
They're living, and this is where you hear sometimes the frustration because you're like, wow, we built so much with, we don't see it. And it's fair frustration, but at the same time, it's the business, the way
it's also the editing of the story, and sometimes they want to focus more on the Lex Luthor character, and they got a good response for that, and that's why we kept that scene in and cut this, and it's so out of our hands at a certain point. It sucks.
This is very interesting. Now I'm going to go back to Independence Day for a second for this kind of situation, talking about cutting.
Yeah.
Where it gets really more frustrating, and that's also nobody's fault per se, is, for example, I'm going to give a specific situation. We had designed that alien spacecraft that Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum take into space. This thing was built from scratch, completely sitting on stage. All the interior of the craft was actually built inside the craft, so it actually was all contained. I had designed chairs that they were chairs for the aliens. So those chairs were not made for humans. They were weird organic chairs. So when we filmed the movie, we captured that craft. The craft is in Area 51. You see technicians coming in there and removing those alien chairs. And they replace them with ejectable seat chairs for our pilots now, the humans. That little sequence
Which is a great point. It's a great point.
Yes, it's a great point. It's actually something Warren really wanted to show. But then, with the pacing of the movie and everything, the sequence got canned. And so, you have many people, maybe not thousands of people, but a lot of people have told me, dude, the craft is great, but the chairs, I don't understand. They're like human chairs. Why are they human chairs? And I told everybody I could.
Yeah.
No, this was because it's actually dangerous to do this because it's still part of the believability of the craft. Is this making? Why would that chair look like this? I don't see
exactly.
In this. Exactly. It was all worked out in everybody's mind. I mean, in Roland's mind as well. He approved that chair. I guess in the cutting table, in the editing room at the end, many other things are more important than that chair.
Yeah.
And that's maybe something you need to. So that's a little frustrating for the designer.
Yeah, I've run into it where it's like, okay, well, this set it should be like really down, even though this rich person lives there. It should be really down because she inherited from her aunt, and they don't want to miss. And it's sort of like, well, that's never in dial. No one knows that. Like, no one knows that but you or the writer or the director saying it. It's not going to be explained. And then if it is, I swear 9 times out of 10 it gets cut. And then, you're looking at this set as a viewer thinking, why is it like that? Why is this rich person living in this really down place? I mean, it's happened. Exactly. It's happened more than I'd like to say. Of like, you're accepting something that you're designing or decorating something based on a plot point or something that sometimes never gets explained to the audience. And
I agree. It's a problem, happens sometimes, and again, everybody will tell you at the end, if the movie's pacing and the story is great, I think this is going to be a lesser issue, and I understand that. I'm totally understanding it's like everybody working on the film are trying to do the best they can.
Absolutely.
They're trying to bring most they can on the table, and often those things you drop actually really appeal to the director, and they love it. But there's a moment where you're not in a movie anymore, where there's there's better reason to get rid of something and not be worrying about that because the story told is the main thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, then you turn it around. If that sequence is boring and whatever, people would say, well, okay, cool, I saw the seats, but really, the movie sits. At that point, there's not much going on.
Yeah.
So, understandable. In a dream world, this would all fit together perfectly. Perfect.
It's all of our director's cuts. There needs to be like a production designer's cut on
That's funny.
on films. And then the commentary.
would be no pacing whatsoever.
No. The story would probably make no sense. It would just be these wide shots. You'd never.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, because I should have started, which I will start in the very beginning. You're nominated for an ADG award. You're nominated for a British Film Designers Guild award for Maleficent this year, which is so beautifully done. And in the last week, I've watched it twice because my twin started to watch it, and I was like, "You're not really allowed to watch this, but I'm gonna let you look a little bit." But
there's some cute stuff for them.
Oh yeah, the little fairies. I mean, yeah. It's great. I loved Queen Ingrid's closet. I mean, I think
Me too. It's on my favorite sets.
Yeah, I mean, forget about everything else. Who doesn't want that closet? So, how many were you building a lot of stages? Like, what is your percentage of stage versus, like, the animation of it or the CGI of it?
No, listen, this is a movie where I'm going to try to figure out a way. Hopefully we'll come up with a book because we actually built gigantic sets.
Yeah, it looked like, I mean, that dining hall, the top of the castle, I mean...
Yeah, those are... the dining hall is, as you see it in the movie, is where it was built. We didn't build the ceiling because when I decided to play with the castle exterior, which, by the way, it's a fantasy piece, it's a period piece, but I offered the look to the director saying it would be great if it's not a real Gothic ancient castle, but we do it like almost a revival Gothic, so he gave us an opportunity to play with square towers, different things. I just thought that was interesting, and he liked the idea, so we did this. Now, that castle is absolutely humongous. Yeah. And that was a choice from the director. Joachim says, let's keep making it bigger, to the point where everybody was looking at it like, dude, this is so big. We need elevators in this thing, which technically you probably would have needed elevators, and this is even one more idea we brought up. I said, you want me to create some cool like rope thing with like nice, elegant, golden, blah, blah, elevators? We don't have to use them, but they're there, so we know they're there. He said, forget it. But, anyway, it was...
That's so great.
So this was really cool, but the thing is, so obviously we didn't build the castle, but the garden, for example, were designed like those French gardens. They're like repeated patterns. So we could build a gigantic garden, I mean, outdoor, gigantic, which was like 1/10, not even, 1/1000th of the size of the garden in the movie, but that was enough for us to create a large-scale garden that could be reproduced multiple times. So that was the garden. The town, we built a big chunk we built all we needed from the town, obviously no rooftop and thing. We had a portion of the river built with the town, so we could have a direct interaction between water, town, and the camera could play between those two elements. The interiors, yes, the main hall, the factory was actually partially built because we only have one or two shots where you see the white shots. So those were elements that were multiplied. The bridge that the Queen Ingrid travels, and the lair of the little...
the nest of origin? Was that what it's called?
No, I was thinking...
the lair. Yes.
The laboratory of the pixie.
Yes,
the
little guy that has them all in jars. Yes.
I gotta say something for once, and it doesn't always happen. I was very, very pumped the way Joachim cut that sequence, because for a moment in a movie, it becomes very rich design-wise. And you always get that. You get into a set, you sit there, you talk, blah, blah, you leave, you get to another one. Or there's other sequence where you go through 5 sets at the same time and probably have no idea what's going on.
Right.
But at the pacing, when the Queen is listening to, I think she's listening to the King, and turns around, so we're in the King's bedchamber, which we built, obviously, and the corridor. She turns around in the corridor, and then you see her walking to her dressing room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then from the dressing room, she goes down the stairs. From down the stairs, she goes across the factory, which we call the factory, and then she goes on to this little laboratory. And this was coming to me in an extremely, at least, as a designer, having designed those sets, I felt it was such a beautifully organic transition of different worlds. It becomes pretty
and it gets
clean,
darker and darker.
And darker.
Yes.
Meaning the bowel of this castle, the idea, which of course was not explained in the movie, is like there used to be another castle like Romanesque down there, which got destroyed, and then the big castle, the new one.
See, the audience doesn't know this. We're designing and decorating things audience doesn't know, and then hopefully it all comes together.
Yeah, people think, are they going into the basement of the castle?
Yeah.
But the thing we did, we start from like a Gothic style up there to a Romanesque style, which are two very different styles. Romanesque being an earlier style from the Gothic style. So for people that obviously are interested in architecture and thing, or interested in art history, they could see those details. I mean, we want them to be there, and we hope people can notice them. If they don't, they don't. The story is not about the architecture, again. But this sequence for me was so great because of that. Because in the space of 30 seconds, you had walked through all those worlds, and that to me made me feel, wow. Now I see the world. I see the world was created, and it's moving so beautifully and organically.
Yes.
I was very happy at that moment.
Beautiful. Beautifully done. I mean, just I think too, what I see, just trying to watch it as a viewer, is especially that scene, or then when you look at where all of the Maleficents, I don't know what their names are, where they live, like the textures are different.
Oh, the Fays. They're called the Fays. The Feys. The Fays.
And then they live like in this more nature world, and it's the hard versus the soft, and nature versus architecture. Like, it's just so beautifully done in the film. I mean, when they go into that one scene, and you have those hanging pods that the families are living in. I just think it was gorgeous. I was like, oh my God, it's an Airbnb. Sign me up.
Airbnb, that's a good one.
Sign me up. I'll take that for a weekend. It was fantastic.
But the big thing for me was to do. Okay, now, so it's very important to bring this up. It reminded me a bit of Independence Day, where the first thing I designed in the movie were the Fays and the main sets. My first art department was here in LA at Disney Studio. I had worked as much on the fake creatures as I did work on the set at the early stages of the film. We went through so many different incarnations of the creatures. There were different IDs. Joachim had a certain ID, Angelina had another ID, and that's part of the way we present things. But we got finally at the end, after months of development, to this place. One of the early ideas of the phase is like, we all come from a cradle of humanity somewhere in Africa, we think, and pretty much sure. And then we started to migrate and around the world and blah, blah, blah. I'm reading a lot of things about human evolution right now, and I'm loving that stuff. I'm not going to get onto that because it's not the point. But basically, we traveled the world. Then we were, our evolution, what we did sort of changed because of the environment, the weather, and everything. We're thinking the phase is the same. So the concept
Sapiens?
of the phase was...
Is that what you're reading? I read that book. Is that...
Oh, no, not this one. No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's good. I heard about that one as well.
Yeah.
No, this was... So the phase is the same story. The islands, you see them at the beginning. The whole thing is this island was there. This is where they were born. This is where the species... This is the cradle of the Fey world. They were probably more primitive back then. There were more birds than men or whatever. And suddenly a volcano exploded like Atlantis. The volcano exploded. This is the look of the island. The island looks like that because I thought it'd be great that when the volcano explodes, it solidifies during the eruption. And it becomes this energized looking island because it's almost like if you freeze frame on a volcano in the middle of an eruption, you would get the look of the island. Jeff Kirschenbaum, one of the producers, talked to me about this kind of idea, and we talked about it, and I thought it was amazing. It was fun. So we had an island like that. So imagine those creatures now travel around the world because the explosion of the island. Some die on the island, and some travel the world. Some go in colder region, some go in forest, deciduous forest, some go in jungles, some go in Arctic, in the desert. So those creatures have gone around the world, but they're being hunted, chased by humans and things, and they all come back to the original island. In this island, there is something great. Because the environment around the island is very cold. At the top, close to the entrance of the island, it's cold. This is where the tundra phase will live. They're closer to the exterior, which is constantly cold. And as you go down in the shaft of this island, you go toward the warmer, because you get closer to the earth.
Right.
This is kind of the concept of that. So they found their world. They brought their thing. They're just starting to live in this place, which is basically the place of origin, where they came from. They're back there. But they're not meant to be there. They're meant to be in the moors with the Fey world and thing, but they're there. And so this whole idea was developed on that. And the fact that they as birds, as men in some ways, I thought the habitat should be nest. Then we started to study nest. Tundra birds, the nest, and the color of their feathers, the shape of their body. Like, for example, deciduous forest, big wing, desert birds, for example, they're always in those tan color, like the vultures and things, and they have very broad wings, so they glide and they can see the prey. You go to the jungle, you take the parrot or the aras and things like that. They have short wings and very long tail. All those things, I've got thousands of designs for all those types of things.
Isn't it amazing the things that we have to study and look into? And I love it. I'm always so grateful. I would never have taken an interest in whatever this month if it wasn't for this project. Like, I love it too. I love to do research.
I do too. I mean, it's such an important part. And you're right. You find yourself in a corner, and suddenly there's a concept out there, and you want to know about those things. You want to learn, and you want to be clever about it. Okay, they're half bird, they're half man, so there's something of a nest would be a great idea for them to live. They're more primitive and primeval than we are. And so the nest, like you say, like Airbnb thing, is like the nest was the concept of the habitat. So now it's great when you travel through the cave. I gotta say, by the way, all this great backstory and all that stuff was not completely in the original shoot of the movie. It was a little bit more brushed by. And I think one of the cuts happened, and the studio and everybody actually looked at it and said, we need to know more about the phase in the island. And I went back for a reshoot this last year.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, you went, it broke up a little. You went for a reshoot this year.
So I went back to London last year for a reshoot. And the reshoot was actually not a reshoot because PCs were not right in the movie or whatever. The movie was quite great. But we had the studio decided, and Joachim and Angelina, that we needed to see more of the inside of the cave. We were not seeing enough. And the reshoot was only based, all the stuff you see in that trip, basically jumping from the nest to the world. We ended up going back there to design this and develop every aspect of that trip she's doing through the cave to discover those worlds. Because it felt like we need to know more about them. They're just mysterious is great, but we need to have an explanation of where they come. So that became the reason of the reshoot. It's not a reshoot, actually, extended photography, I would call, because in this case, we didn't reshoot, we just added.
Yeah, that's beautifully done, and I think an enjoyable part of the movie. I think it's a great little segment of the movie where you get into her world a little bit, which, I mean, she's why we are there. She's why you're watching that movie. For me, it's fascinating enough. But yeah. Do you, or can you say, like, how much the budget was for production design, the art department in that film?
Well, it was in pounds. I can't really tell you. I don't want to say something stupid, but it was conservative. We had to be clever.
Yeah.
It was not like all over the board, and some decision I can say, which to me more appropriate, even would say that decisions were made by Joachim, our director, to go take more money from VFX to a certain extent or whatever, just make sure there was enough for the sales that he wanted. Yeah. He was the big, I just worked with Zack Snyder prior to that. Zack Snyder knows to use the VFX. I mean, so does Joachim, but he is ready to have smaller sets. Mm-hmm. And I've expanded in Melty. Joachim is a man that comes from a world of sets, and he wants his sets. And he wants his sets to be large scale because he doesn't want to compromise. So with Joachim's support and Joachim's will of making this the movie he wanted to shoot, we built big, large sets. That was for him. Right. There was probably ways. But, he had to make compromise. He had to work with visual effects and just make sure some of that money goes back to the art department to get that and that and that. And obviously, when you build the main whole all together, there's not much visual effect extension in this thing, except when you look at the ceiling that's like, 50 feet in the air. Right. Once every, once in a while, maybe, But most of the time, he was able to shoot the whole thing without seeing that ceiling. And he made that choice. And for us, what a great thing.
Yeah.
Once we're able to build more and just rely less on green screen. We did have green screen, obviously, with the exteriors and all that stuff, but Joachim was really pushing for both sets, angles covered, So he's also a man that just, he's very prepared, but he also likes to do things on the day, on the set. So the director,
That's scary.
Yeah, that's scary, but the reason that makes it less scary is because he knows he's going to want to do that in that set. So you build the set. Yeah. Rather than saying, hey, let's build 3 walls, 4 walls, we don't see, it's going to be a green screen, which costs you money as well, by the way. Joachim said, let's build a set. Let's build a set, and let's build this. Can you build me this as well? Because I will. And he's actually one of the strongest point of Joachim is, to me, his sense of angle and camera. I mean, he's a great director, super creative, but he's also got something. He manipulates the camera very well. His angles are very powerful, very strong, very clever. He uses the world and he just plays with it, and he uses everything.
I mean, it's beautiful films. I mean, they're
really rewarding. Yeah, it's great.
Now, you also direct a little bit. You're also in that. I mean, one of your many other credits is directing. I mean, how do you like? Obviously, you like it. Is that?
Listen. All of us working in an art department, the world of directing, I'm just going to have to be careful what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, what is the difference between directing and designing? It's the directing, you have to have a vision.
It's very hand in hand. It's very hand in hand, and it's...
Absolutely. You have to have a vision, you have to know how to work with teams. You have to know how to... because you have a vision, be able to talk to different teams, costume designer, your art department, your editor, everybody. It's about being able to bring out your vision and help people understand it so they can help you. But there's a bit of that in the art department. The big difference between directing to me and our department is the actors. That's a world that's completely different.
Right,
so for me, by actors, I mean, this is a different group of people. You don't work with a technician in the art department the way you work with an actress or an actor. They have a different sensibility. They're very sensible. They're very exposed. They're people that bring everything. We're hidden behind computer designing stuff. Concept artist is not that exposed. Well, we all expose ourselves in some ways. But so that was something for someone like me that I just had to kind of understand. And my first experience was actually the Underworld movie, the third one, and didn't take me too much, but I found the pre-production like a ride in a park. I had a blessed time. When my actors came, I realized that some actors are actors you're going to be working, it's going to be fabulous, and some other actors you're going to have to be a little bit, I'm not going to say names, but some actors you're going to have to do a little bit more effort. You have to get them in the right place. And, I'm not Spielberg. It's not like I've done 50 movies and I'm like, I was a beginner. And obviously, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove them that you know what you're doing.
Trust. And you gotta get that trust in there, I think, with that.
You gotta get that trust. So they challenge you. They're clever. They challenge you. They're like, hey, I don't understand. Why should I be doing this? And you have to be ready, bottom line. But I love the job because to me, and we've talked about that, to me, it's like we said, as a designer, first of all, as a designer, and I'm not saying this to be humble, but as a designer, we're not making our movie. We know we're doing the movie of the director.
Yeah.
That is his vision. It's the vision of the director you bring on the table. You can be whatever designer you are going to bring ideas, you're going to develop things, you make things look great, but at the end of the day, it's not your film. It's the film of the director.
Right.
So, what it means is that vision is more global. You're doing a part of it. There's costume you're not touching, or there is something you're not touching. There's a DP, there's a way it's shot. It's not you. I mean, you work with all those teams, but you're not working on organizing this world like an orchestra director. Well, the director does that. I mean, a good director does that. And to me, it's exciting. For everybody that does what we do is give you one more layers of, I would shouldn't use the word control, but one more layer to be able to express yourself on what you want to say, what you want the movie to be. So it's absolutely phenomenal. It is hard to get movies as a director because you can be. After I did the Underworld, I developed a few movies, and you develop for a year and a half. Suddenly the production shuts down. Something happened. I won't get into detail, but you find it's such a hard thing. When we are designers or set decorator even more so, we get cold when the movie is going.
Right.
Maybe set decorator probably even more.
Yeah.
The designer can sometimes hang for beginning and something else. But we're here, so we have a job. We jump from one job to another job, or more or less. The director, you can work for like a year, 2 years on a movie. You became super close to your character. The characters, I never knew this would be something I would feel when the first
so
movie.
Immersed into
you immerse
that
them,
side.
friends.
Yeah.
They're friends. They're like relationship that you have with those characters. That to me was like, I had no idea. I could have never talked the way I'm talking to you about it. And then suddenly someone tells you, well, the money went, we don't have the money, dude, sorry, it's not happening. The empty, the void that you have in your body it shocked me. My first time I was like, oh my God. And so of course I had to learn that this could happen many other time, and you have to learn to still be extremely passionate and sort of distance yourself a little bit. And it takes time, and it hurts every time, but you deal. So this is the problem, I think when you're a young, creative person, you're in the industry, and you do your first movie at 18 years, 19 years old, you can like work on noodles and figure it out. I mean, you don't need to make a living to that level. You stay as some friend. When you have a career already, and now you get offered a movie, and you can't stop everything. I can't stop the production design to direct.
Right.
Meaning I can stop if the directing goes, then I go, I do this. But the problem is you cannot, you have to, you have a way of living, you have to take care of yourself, your family.
Your life, you have to have your life too.
It's a lot harder, and this is why it's harder for directors that start later in a career to direct. I'm not saying systematically like that. You maybe goes, you may be super talented or whatever, something goes and it kicks in, but it's a very hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard to jump into different departments, and I think that's one of the things with you. You have so many different, like from creatures to designing to art director to you have costume design and wardrobe department and producer and actor, and you must have so much passion for film that you just want to be a part of it, and it just seems to me that you just want to be in it in any way you can, and you obviously are so talented that you've been able to be a part of some and lend your talents to these films and make them great, and that's amazing. I thank you for that, because look, I saw Independence Day twice in the theater. I appreciate that, and that's influential as someone who wants to be a part of film and television, like seeing that work and being like, wow, who did that? Like, that's crazy. Like, look at that alien. Look at that spaceship. Like, who knew it was a belt buckle? Like, it's amazing.
That's really, first of all, thank you for saying all that, especially you're in the industry yourself. You've done tons of stuff as well. But I'm just saying, one thing interesting about a couple of days ago, I saw an interview of David Lynch and about his filmmaking and thing. And I was actually extremely surprised how he would talk about filmmaking, but also art. In general. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something. As you said, my passion, I'm not sure my passion is for filmmaking. My passion is for expressing, expressing art, expressing visions. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So I found myself gone into the world of I didn't do film school. I didn't do any of that. I was an illustrator. I was a painter. I did, murals in Europe. I did race motorcycle. I thought I was going to do that, and never art stuff. I raced motorcycle for most of my life. That's still my thing. I'm still crazy about motorcycles. Mm-hmm. So just to tell you that the film, and of course it has become my home, and I love it, and I just love what it gives me and what I can do with it. But this was never truly the intent. Yeah. My intent was like, when I came to America for the first time, I was like, wow, look at these creatures in the movie The Thing. They're like, this is mad. I want to do that. And then, look at this world there. I want to make a drawing of that. It was not really because the end of all was like a film. It was not my thing. And today, it's still about expressing myself. And obviously, I've been in this industry for a while, and it has become my tool of communication. But this is why I guess I'm bouncing from production design to maybe directing to maybe costume design for this or creature stuff. And I'm doing all that because they're all about expressions and ideas, and I love ideas. Yeah. And the movie is one place where you can combine many of your ideas and work with a team of people that you really love to. I love working in the morning in the art department. I know I'm sure I like that, but to me, I really want to keep the atmosphere.
Because we're the only ones there now.
Yeah, we're there. And I want to walk in there and just enjoy seeing the people there. I want them to be happy in there. I don't like to work under massive pressure, and I never create pressure on my people. You can ask around. This is my thing. I want a smile. I want people to have a good time because I believe people will have a good time. I know there's other schools. There's schools that says, people need to be pushed to the.
No,
need to be
it's good people, and I feel like I have definitely learned that. There's sometimes it's like, well, you know what? I'll get to work with this designer. I'll get to work. The project becomes secondary to my work environment.
I'm like that, and I see more and more now. We just finished Maleficent almost like a year and a half ago. Then the reshoots. Those people in England are calling. They're reaching out. They say, "Hey, I heard you may be coming. I know they have other options. What a better. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what do I want to be remembered to? Being a cool designer to work for.
Yes,
that's kind of what I mean.
Yes.
And it's too important for me to be a good human being. I really want to be that, and. Because, oh my gosh, the rewards. I mean, when someone reaches out and says, "Well, you're coming back, we're dying to work with you again," there's nothing better for me. I don't find anything better. I love that.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, the filmmaking, the film world has given me this. That it is obvious that if I was an artist, like I know some that like comic book artists, they're home all the time doing their boards of comic strips and stuff, and you look at their work, and they wake up in the morning, and they do whatever, and then they go sit down at a desk until 4 in the morning, or whatever they do. They're on their own. And some of those artists I've worked with in the art department a couple of times, where they did a bit of storyboarding for us.
Mm-hmm.
They love it. It's hard to be on your own all the time,
Yeah.
You control your life, but it gets really lonely. And every one of those artists has told me, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I can be a little bit out of my studio for a bit." Yeah, I mean,
you need a camaraderie. I mean, and you're able to bounce ideas off of each other, and it's very important to have that art department and set decoration department and be there together. Even if it gets so crazy sometimes, and you might only see each other every other day or whatever. There's still this checking in and this sort of like, how you doing and how's it going and where are we on that? Like, in the
I don't know
flesh.
for you how it is, but I've worked with the same, and of course there's new people every time they come. You meet someone else and you're like, "Oh, wow, great! Oh, we had such a good time." But I've got a team of people I've worked for the last 20 years.
And that says something. The people that work with people for a long time, it says something. Yeah.
It's
great.
I work with them because I'm not looking for next. Strangely enough, I'm not looking for the next better one, because there will always be the next better one. I've got friends of mine, designers, that keep questing for the best illustrator, for the best. I think this is not the point. Those people, by the way, I'm working with are absolutely phenomenal. And there will be another guy that will do something that I haven't seen. It's great, and maybe I'll work. My thing is, I want the people I work with to be able to bring a lot on the table. Meaning, this is why I sketch. I don't show them a piece of Photoshop finish. I like to sketch the idea, because for me, what I need is that form. Like if I showed you the Batmobile sketch, it is exactly there. The proportions are there. It's a rough little doodle, but you see it. Mm-hmm. And from there, when my artists come on board, I don't tell them move this here. I don't want to over
micromanage.
Micromanage.
Yeah.
I'm going to push for the direction I want it to be, but I want them to breathe.
Yeah.
If they breathe,
yes.
They're going to do their stuff. They're going to bring their stuff to my design, my original design, and they're going to make my original design better. And if next time I do the same thing, I'm going to keep growing. I won't be just Patrick doing Patrick stuff with Patrick's vision and Patrick and Patrick and Patrick. That is the wrong way to go for me. So always, because that's your job, sketch out, bring that signature thing, bring that form, bring that silhouette, talk to them and let them go. So I think
you're a nurturer. You're a nurturer then, and that's appreciated very much, especially in decorating. I told you this was going to take an hour. I told you, and look, it flew by. I hope.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I owe you a drink at the ADG Awards. I hope I will see you there and run into you and at least give you a big hug for thanking you for giving me your time.
I want to meet you there. So,
yes.
Yeah, we should totally meet.
I'm not even kidding that I really was blushing at the end of this, because he nailed it in some sense of saying, like, I don't want to sound humble. But he seems really like a humble man who loves the collaboration that the art department has together in creating pieces. I mean, look at how many people he named and thanked just in this interview of his team and getting everything put together. And like I said, wanting to nourish people, that it's not just my design, it's ours. And we are all spokes in this giant wheel that just keeps turning in production design. So it was just super nice of him to give me the time, and I really learned a lot from him just in that. I mean, the ability to go from creature designer to production designer and then take on these huge films is incredible to me. And I'm certainly glad that I have this opportunity to speak with him. And now I get to buy him a drink. I wonder what to order. I think maybe he's a martini man. I don't know. I'll let you know. Hey, got a minute? Rate this podcast on iTunes and just throw that 5 stars in there. You know you want to. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanna for Decorating Pages. Decorating Pages is sponsored by Stogie Floaty, luxury pool floats. Float 'em if you got 'em. Visit stogiefloaty.com.